Hi, I'm Allie Hamilton, and I'm so happy to welcome you to the Come As You Are podcast. Every week, we'll be talking about some aspect of healing, usually around childhood wounds and complicated familial relationships. The topics will always coincide with my personal essay of the week, and this will be a place where we can take a deep dive together. I'm so thrilled you've joined me and delighted for you to always come as you are. Hi there. Hi there. Welcome to our talk. Today, the topic is the I behind the I. The I, capital I, like I, me, mine, behind the I, as in like the eye that sees. And that is based on an Anaïs Nin quote about things. We don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. That idea. And, I was thinking about that. I've had a very strange week. I woke up early Tuesday morning to my phone ringing. It was my son, and he is totally fine. But he had been in a 3-car pileup. His car was the third car, and his car's totaled. So we did not know the car was totaled at the time, but he knew the car was not in good shape. For me, as soon as he said I was in a car, all I cared about was, are you okay? And he said, I'm totally fine. And once I knew that, I was fine. And if you are a parent, then that's like when you get those calls, that's the only thing. Are you okay? Is everyone okay? Is anyone hurt? As long as nobody's hurt, it's all, the rest of it is just details. So as soon as I knew that, I really was like completely fine. But some of the details are a bummer. One of them is we just got this car for him before school started, and the other's insurance is not going to cover it. So, and there's a longer story there that it's just like, it doesn't even matter, but it's just totaled and it's a loss and it's a bummer. And really has to do with just insurance companies like not being your friend, right? Like if they don't have to pay, they're not going to pay. And, I have been with this insurance company for 20 years, and every time I call, they're always like, thank you for your 20 years of loyalty. But when push comes to shove, it's like, it's all insurance companies. It's not just this particular insurance company. That's how it is. And if there's any kind of like reason that they cannot, cover it, they won't. So, I know that. But was it disappointing? Yeah. Yeah. So that's basically what happened. I really was like, you know what? There are a lot of people, a lot of parents who got calls on Tuesday and their kids were not okay. So that's it. Like the rest of it just doesn't matter. Cars can be replaced. And, like financial things can be figured out, even if it's hard, right? The rest of it, you cannot replace a person. So that's it. I did drive up there. I didn't sleep well on Tuesday night, not surprisingly. And I decided to drive up there on Wednesday, just mostly because I wanted to like look at him and just, and then we went to the body shop where the car was. And that's when we found out it was totaled. We didn't know until then. And while I was there, that evening, his girlfriend, was on an e-bike and hit a speed bump in the dark and went flying. And we had to go to the ER because she was hurt enough that it was like, we have to, make sure that you are okay. Like, make sure internally everything is okay in there. And there was just like her, she'd hit her, like her chin and her nose. They always want to make sure that with the chin and the jaw that there aren't any fractures because it's so close to the airway, and swelling can be dangerous. Thankfully, no broken bones. She does have a concussion, but it's not severe, so she's okay. She's banged up, but she's okay. So again, even with her, like, could have been a lot worse. It's another just thankful that it wasn't a. It could have been a lot worse. And so I ended up crashing on her couch. We were in the ER until, like, I think after midnight. And then I drove back Thursday, and it's like a 6-hour drive. So it's a lot of time in the car, a lot of time to have just like thoughts, in your head. And it's also a beautiful drive. It's a beautiful drive from Southern California to Northern California and back. And I like driving. I'm someone who enjoys, it's kind of meditative. The drive back, I was feeling pretty tired. So I had a playlist going and I was singing along and just trying to keep myself awake and alert. But it's also, just that where you have those long stretches of you've got to be focused on, you've got to be present, right? You're going to be in the moment, just like really paying attention to what's happening around you. And it's so beautiful. Our country is so beautiful, and the state is particularly beautiful. And I am often, when I do this drive, which I do pretty frequently now, it's his second year at school up there, and I'm struck by how incredibly beautiful it is. And there are so many places along the way that I wish I could stop and take a picture because it is so stunning. And there are a lot of places that look untouched, where you just see rolling green hills and like black cows dotting the hillside and maybe like a barn in the distance, so they're not really untouched, but they just look beautiful and not modern, let's say. Or you'll see like mountains in the not so distance, or lavender fields, or there are places where it's very desert-like, and it looks almost like another, like Mars. Like, it's just, it's a beautiful drive. But there isn't enough shoulder to stop. It's just one of those things that you take in with your eyeballs and appreciate yourself. And there are so many times where I think, God, it's just like how much I love this country and how sad I feel about what is happening here. Yeah. And I think also when you have those really long expanses of time and space, there's something about looking at a vista that I don't see every day that I feel like my eyeballs crave, like a different, just something different. I feel like they're kind of feasting on the visual, the difference. I think there's something about that that's really good for us. It's one of the reasons I love to travel and be in new places and even be hearing different languages and immersed in different cultures. I think it's really good for us to be in environments outside what we're doing and seeing and hearing and, every day. So as I'm, taking this long drive back, and I'm of course emotional because it is emotional when you realize like your children, as they get older and they're not, they're up at school, right? They're not living with you 24/7 anymore. You spend so many years keeping your children safe. It's your number one job. For years, you're immersed in that. And then they grow up And at a certain point, you find yourself driving your child, your firstborn, to school, to college, and driving away, leaving them there, right? And I went through that last year, and it's okay. Like it was very emotional. I was sobbing when I drove away last year. It's not like that now. We're used to it, and we have a rhythm going, and it's really okay. We're in that new phase of things. But there is something about getting that call of like, hey, I'm on the side of the road. I've had an accident that is just, it just grips your heart, just grips, like I can't keep my children safe anymore. And the truth is that, I'm sorry to say this, the truth is that we never can. It's an illusion to think that we can ever, because anything can happen on any day to any of us, and that's just part of being alive and being a human being on this planet. We're vulnerable, and there's a fragility to this experience of being human on planet Earth. There's a vulnerability to it, whether we like to face that or not. It's there. And I think that the less that we take it in, kind of the more it is problematic, because we know it's there. It's like a thorn in your brain almost, I think it's better to just kind of like face it head on and recognize it, and face it enough that you are not wasting time, and that you're making sure you're really like sucking the juice out of every moment and loving your people and making sure they know how much you love them, and pursuing the things that light you up, and whatever is inside you, like longing to be heard, or written or painted, or whatever, like not to let that go unexpressed, to really try to make sure you're sharing your particular spark, whatever it may be, because we only get one you in all of time, right? There's only one you. And I think that's miraculous. Whether you want to call it a scientific miracle or a spiritual miracle does not matter to me. I think when you think about the universe and all of time, that there's only ever one you, I think that is incredible, and that you have something that only you can bring to this dance. And so it's that funny paradox of like, we are tiny specks in this vast universe. We're here for a blink of time, but also there's only one of you, so you want to shine, you want to like bring whatever it is, you want to bring it. Both of those things are true. And so as I was driving back, I think I was just like emotionally exhausted, because as much as I knew he was okay after I spoke to him, and I knew the other drivers were okay, the other drivers' cars are fine. Only his car is the one that is going to be like sold for parts. I still just having that, just that moment even is a lot. That moment of getting that call it does a lot to your nervous system. So I think I was just like exhausted from that. And then, when his girlfriend, I adore her, and so then when she, like, we had gotten through the day, and then he got a call from her, and he was like, we have to go to the ER. Like, I was then extremely worried about her, so we were in that zone again. I think I was just like, really tired. And I also did not get a lot of sleep. So when I was driving back, I was having all of these thoughts and thinking about the state of California and how beautiful it is, but also like how painful things are in this country right now for people who feel the way that I do, which is not all of us, but for people who feel the way that I do and voted the way that I did and think the way that I do, it's a very painful, alarming time. And to love your country so much and feel so underrepresented by the people in power, you know, that they hate you, and that the people who support them, there's like all this disdain and contempt, is really incredibly sad. And then to watch so many people suffering as a result. And one of the things that I saw on Tuesday later in the day was this video, and maybe you've seen it too, but it was this mom, Jackie Nunez, I think is her name, and her daughter, they were on their way to school. Her daughter is 16, the same age as my daughter. And she was driving her daughter to school, and they got pulled over by ICE agents. And they were asking Jackie for her documents, which she had. She had her social security card. She had all of her legal documents to be here, her driver's license, of course, all of that. She had just gotten her social security card and she hadn't memorized the number yet. And so the agent asked her to share her social security number. She couldn't remember it. And that was enough to upset the agent. And this agent lunged at her. She then went for the door to try to get to her daughter. And the other agent, I think, tackled her. And it was so violent and horrible. And the daughter started sobbing and screaming and was filming this, because that is what you are supposed to do, right? If you're in a situation like that, you film so that you have the evidence of what happened. So she got out of the car, she came around, and they had tackled her mother. And, you know, she was not resisting. She's tiny. It's two men, and this mother is now tackled and being handcuffed, and the daughter is standing there hysterical, just screaming over and over again, like, mom, mom, mom. I mean, it's awful. It's like rips your heart out. And they then threw the keys at the daughter and took off with the mom and left the 16-year-old daughter on the side of the road. She ended up calling her aunt. Her aunt came to get her. Her mother is in jail. She's only been able to speak to her twice. And, you know, it was so violent and unnecessary. She was literally just trying to comfort her daughter. Like, that's all that was happening. She was not resisting. She was not trying to flee. There's nothing. No one deserves to be treated that way. And she has her documents. So, but even if she didn't, no one deserves to be treated like that. And no one's child should be traumatized that way. And you can look this video up if you haven't seen it. It is, I want to tell you, one of the worst things I've seen. Just thinking about it, I could start crying right now, like easily. Like, I'm working to not cry. It's so upsetting. So I want you to know that, just in case you are not sort of like resourced to watch anything like that, you know, maybe wait. But if you are someone, I don't really think too many people who voted for this are probably listening to me anymore or reading my stuff. But if you voted for this, I definitely think you should watch. And I think that is like one of the most disturbing things, is because like under the video, and it's been posted by a lot of people now, because it was just so, the daughter is making sounds that any of us would make if, you know, someone we loved, like our mom, somebody we loved in that primal way, is being harmed violently, and you are powerless to stop it. It's happening right in front of you and you have no recourse to stop it. She's making those sounds, you know, it's just like devastating. And she's a kid. So, nothing about that is making us great. You know, it's like we're getting hardened mothers off the streets now. Like, that's what we're doing. I mean, and so under these videos, you see a lot of people who feel like I do, like, wow, this is just, there is absolutely no justification for this. This is so awful. How can I help? Like, you know, is there a GoFundMe? There is. is the daughter okay? Like, who is she staying with? What can I do? And then you see some people who are like, did she have her documents? I saw another video that she didn't have her documents. And I saw a comment like that. Now, see, I have the kind of personality where when I see something like that, I do not understand. I don't understand how anyone can watch a video like that and have that reaction. It just doesn't, I cannot get my head around it, because to me, it's like, I don't care who you are. If you watch that, I cannot understand having any reaction except that is not okay. Like, it doesn't make sense. So I went to look at the person's profile, and I get there and it's got a biblical quote in the bio. And that's almost every time what you find with people that have no compassion in a situation like this. I'm sorry to say, but I know, because I have this thing where I really want to understand. Like, I'm really trying to understand a different point of view. I'm like, how can we watch this same video, right? And both see the same thing and both hear this child crying for her mother. And you are saying this, like, how can this be? I'm going to go look and see who you are and try to understand you. And that's really why I'm going. I'm not looking for any other reason. I'm trying to understand a different point of view and wrap my head around it. And it's almost without fail, like, I was not surprised. I'm like, yep, there it is. And not only that, the person had a website. And if you clicked on the website, there was a biblical quote on this website about, not everyone, everyone is a sinner and not everyone rises above and, is able to serve God. Like, it was just wild. And I went back to the original post and I just responded to the person and was like, this question you're asking, like, did she have her, this is like, I went to your profile and you're talking about, like, not being ashamed to follow the teachings of Christ. And this is the question you're asking. Like, do you think this is a Christ-like question? Like, bring all the little children to me, as long as they have their legal documents. I mean, what Bible are you reading? Like, I don't understand. And I said, you should really think about changing your bio until you get yourself together. Like, all is not right with your soul. If you can watch this video and this is your response, something's going very wrong with you. But it's not going to matter. Like, what I wrote will not matter. I didn't curse. I just simply said that something is wrong, and something is wrong. If you can look at that and be quoting the Bible and talking about Jesus and following God, and then asking, well, does this woman have her documents? Because if not, this is what she gets. Like, where is your compassion, your empathy, your understanding? Like, what is going on? Something is really going deeply wrong. And I would pose the same question about SNAP benefits being used as a political leveraging maneuver. 1 in 5 children count on SNAP benefits so that they can eat. And it's so, I can't, this whole narrative about, because I have the kind of personality where I do want to understand, right? I'm trying to understand, like, how can people, what are you not getting, right? Like, we have a Republican Senate, House, executive branch. Speaker of the House has sent the Republican senators home week after week. They have not been in Washington negotiating with their Democrat colleagues. Like, Democrats signed a clean CR in March, hoping that their Republican colleagues would negotiate with them on the big, quote unquote, big, beautiful bill, which for a lot of people is a big, ugly bill, meaning a lot of Republicans as well. People in red states are going to suffer more than people in blue states because of that bill, hoping they would negotiate, which is what they're supposed to do. That's how a functioning democracy works, no matter who's in the majority. And please note, it's close, okay? But they are in control of all three branches of government and, unfortunately, the Supreme Court, okay? There are, this decision to give the president immunity for official acts is unheard of, unprecedented, and it stinks. It stinks. So to try to blame the Democrats, like, it's just, like, there's no there. That's not a credible argument. And I think any reasonable person understands that. Even the people trying to make that argument know that. But maybe it's easier to say that than it is to face the fact that they are still supporting an administration that would use SNAP benefits, starving children, as political leverage, right? Like, that's got to be a tough thing to face. And so maybe it's just easier to go with this ridiculous narrative all over the government websites. I mean, it's coming from the top down. It's coming from this administration. They're putting it all over the government. It's the Democrats shutdown. It's the Democrats shutdown. It's the Democrats are not, they are in the minority here. And, they could sign another clean CR right now and reopen the government. Sure. What they're asking for is an extension of the Affordable Care Act subsidies. We need them November 1st. Like, next week is when the marketplace opens. And so we're out of time. They've had since January, to come up with their budget bill. They could have extended the subsidies. They could have done that right away. It's not like they were not unaware that the subsidies were going to expire. They knew December 31st, the subsidies are going to expire. They knew marketplace opens November 1st. Like, they know what's going on. And they chose not to do that. They did not extend the subsidies. So we're like at a critical juncture here. And why are we in a position, like somebody explained to me, where this administration is saying you have to choose between feeding the most vulnerable members of our country or allowing people to have affordable health care? Those are the options. And what is this like garbage about, we're not going to talk about it till after you sign the clean CR, then we'll talk about it? Why? If you're willing to talk about it, just say, okay, we'll extend the benefits. We'll extend the subsidies, rather. We'll extend the ACA subsidies. Go ahead and sign the clean CR. And we're good then, right? We've got the subsidies extended. We don't have to worry about people like me. My premiums right now are $346.46 a month. Without the subsidies, as of January 1st, my monthly premium will be $1,706.59 a month. So if they would just say, okay, we'll extend the subsidies, we'll rework the budget a little bit. You guys go ahead and sign that clean CR. We got a deal. Then SNAP benefits go back into effect. And by the way, you all, I'm sure, know now, there are contingency funds that they could release. They're saying they can't legally do it. Of course they can. And by the way, this administration suddenly cares about legality. This administration that is funding, knocking down the East Wing without any congressional oversight or approval, without any public review, just knocking down the East Wing to build a ballroom that is being built with money from private donations of huge corporations, pay-to-play politics, totally illegal. And suddenly they're like, oh yeah, but we can't release this money that Congress appropriated for SNAP benefits in case of a government shutdown or other emergencies. Yeah, legally we can't. The language doesn't allow for that. Yes, it does. They took the language down. They took it off the website. The language absolutely allows for that. They just are choosing not to because they're trying to force Democrats to sign a clean CR with no guarantee that they're going to extend the Affordable Care Act subsidies. And it's just, it gets tiring. It gets tiring to watch this insistence still by people who are going to be harmed by these policies also, just like digging their heels in on stuff. I saw people posting stuff like the premiums were going to go up anyway. The Affordable Care Act premiums were going to go up anyway. Maybe like $10, maybe $10, like, that usually happens from year to year. Like if you're on whatever the silver plan or something and it was $346, it might be $356 the next year. Not $346 to $1,700. That was absolutely not going to happen. It's just like, people just saying stuff that is not based on anything. That gets really, it gets really exhausting. And I've just gotten to this point where, I was writing about, as I was driving, I started to think about the video. When I saw it, the Jackie Nunez video with her daughter, when I saw it, I was sobbing because her daughter, I could just imagine my daughter, again, same age, being in that position, and it just like broke me. Like I just felt so devastated about the way that we are treating people, good human beings. That woman has lived here 20 years, pays her taxes. You understand? I mean, I don't know how many times to say the same thing, but like, people who live here, immigrants, pay taxes, but they do not receive benefits. They don't get Social Security. They don't get Medicaid. They're not eligible for the Affordable Care Act. The only thing they get is if they go to the emergency room for emergency care treatment because of EMTALA. They get that. Just like you and I, if we're abroad and we go to the emergency room, we'll be treated. And a lot of the time it's not free, by the way. They do pay. They'll get a bill from the ER. But they pay their taxes. So it's just like there's so much garbage information, and it gets so tiring to have to, keep correcting the record. The other thing, and by my way of thinking, this really should be the top story, is in order for democracy to function, we elect representatives, right? We have senators, we have Congress people. So every state, every city, we have our mayors, every state, right? We have our representatives and our Congress people, our senators, we have all of that. We get to vote. Our communities, we get to figure out like who do we want to send to our state capitals to represent our needs and to Washington, right? And part of what's happening with, like, when the president called Governor Abbott in Texas and said, redraw your maps. I want you to redraw your maps so that we retain control for the midterms. I explained this, a couple months ago when the Texas Democrats broke quorum and left the state. What was happening there, just to try to make this really, just to try to make it easy, is a state like Texas is really big. They have 6 congressional districts. What's supposed to happen is each district is supposed to be able to go and vote for the person that they think will best represent their district, their neighborhood, their community. And generally, it's going to be someone who has either grown up in the community, lives in the community, understands, maybe it's somebody who was on like a school board originally, a city council members, people like know, they watch this person come up and they trust. And then they elect that person for like bigger and bigger positions. Not always, but often, right? Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's like, whatever, local sports hero or, or it's like a teacher, a really popular history teacher or something. It's like, but it's usually a well-known member of the community that everybody trusts and feels good about, says, this is a good person. Let's send them to represent our needs. When the congressional maps are drawn, it usually happens every 10 years after they do the census. The census is when you'll get, it's like they'll say, okay, who lives in your household and what's your demographic, what's your nationality, what's your ethnicity, what's your, like who's there. The reason they're doing that is because they're trying to get a sense of who lives in this community and who should get to vote for their representatives. So for example, in Texas, right, there are certain communities that are, the immigrant population in Texas is like 60%. And so there are some districts in Texas that are like majority immigrant. And so they should get to decide who's going to represent them. What the president did is he called Greg Abbott and he said, I want you to redistrict now. I want you to redraw those maps now in the middle of the decade. So they should not have been redrawn until 2030 after the next census to see who's living where and who should get to, vote for their representatives, like what communities, how should the maps be drawn so that these communities are delineated, right? He asked him, he said, redraw those maps so that Republicans retain control in each of these different districts in Texas. And because, listen, Texas is not this giant swath of just like red across the state. It's not. There are, just like every other state, California included, there are blue, purple, it's not just this one, and he did not want to lose control. And the governor should have said, no, that's not what we do. Redistrict the census and redistricting maps, it's usually an objective, third party, apolitical, that's how that is done. And that's how it should be done. And that's how it's been done in California. But it's Greg Abbott. Greg Abbott of, Greg Abbott and Ken Paxton fame. They're just like, they're over there making women leave the state if they want to have, if they've got like some kind of, pregnancy related emergency at the end of their pregnancies. And I mean, it's just whatever. So he did it. And that is why, for example, like Newsom said, that's why the Texas Dems broke quorum. They left the state because they were like, this is disgusting. You are openly cheating. You're just like, the president asked you to redistrict in the middle of the decade and you're saying yes. You're doing it. That is no more free and fair elections that way. That's not cool. So they left the state they couldn't stop it because Republicans are in the majority there, but they slowed it down. That was the only means they had to protest. So they did it. And now breaking quorum is a thing that's happened forever, on both sides of the aisle. It's legal. And Republicans have done it. It's like, there's nothing strange about that. But if you were paying attention to that story, then you know what happened. They were, screaming and yelling, oh, we're going to, arrest you. They came back. They were like, if you don't come back, we're $500 a day for each one of you every day you miss. And we're going to arrest you if you don't come back and all this stuff. And then when they did come back, because they had to come back, they were supposed to sign these permission slips to allow law enforcement to follow them around when they left the Capitol, the state Capitol, to like go to the gym or go to the grocery store, go pick up their kids from school, then go home and then go back to work to make sure they showed up for the vote like that Wednesday. And then there was the whole like there were people one of the Texas Dems was like, I'm not gonna do that. I'm blanking on her name right now, which is terrible, but she just was like, I'm not doing that. And she stayed there. She slept over at the Capitol and was just like, and then a bunch of Dems tore up their permission slips and stayed there with her. Her name will come to me, but we need more people like her. She's amazing. Anyway, my brain is really scrambled right now, so forgive me. But so that happened. Okay. While all that was going on, Governor Newsom said, if you do this, Greg Abbott, if you say yes to this president who is telling you he's asked you to openly rig the elections, the midterms, we're going to do it in California too. I mean, I'm going to ask my people, I'm not going to do what you're doing and just decide to go ahead and redistrict. I'm going to have a special election and ask my citizens here in California if they want to do this. But if they say yes, we're going to do the same thing, because we have the biggest state in the country. We will basically nullify like any gains you make by adding Republican Congress people, by redistricting your maps. We will undo the cheating that you just did by adding Democrats. Like we'll just basically undo what you did. We don't want to do that. Like, that's not who we are or how we roll. We have an independent, we wait for our census and we redraw our maps with an independent body. But if you are going to cheat and play dirty like that, like, we're not going to sit here and wring our hands and write a strongly worded letter. Like, we're not doing that. We're done following the rules while you openly cheat in broad daylight. Like, we're done. So he's got Prop 50, which I am totally yes on, because it's like we're getting to a point now where, I mean, I don't even know if it's going to be enough, to be honest with you, because all of these red states are doing it. Not all of them, but a lot of them. There are a few governors in a few red states with integrity who are saying, I'm not going to do that, which I applaud. But most of them are just going to follow suit. And so I don't know. I really don't know. I'm just getting really tired of the hypocrisy and the double standards and the just all of it. Like this thing that they're creating and then they like say it's the Democrats doing it. Now, I am not even, and I've said this multiple times, it's like in a better scenario, I'd be focusing on like how to make the liberal-minded party better. It's not like I'm thrilled. There are things I'd like to be thinking about and talking about and working on that there's not even any room to do that right now. I don't think a two-party system is working for us. And I've said that multiple times. But there's no space to have that conversation right now, because what's happening, and this is what I really did want to get at, is that the system that we have right now is the one that we have right now. And that's the one that's being gutted. And I think a lot of people are not understanding some of what's happening here. When you have a government shutdown and you have a party that's in the majority in all three branches, right? And a president who's talking about a third term and shooting boats out of international waters and knocking down, the East Wing and building ballrooms with like money from Google and Apple and Meta and OpenAI and Lockheed Martin. And people are like, why are you getting so upset? It's not our money. Like, he's doing it with his friends. Yeah, they're not, they're going to want something for their $25 million donation. Okay. They're not doing it out of kindness or because they like him. People need to understand billionaires want more money. They want more money. That's what they want. They want more. It's never enough. They're not doing it because they like the guy. They're doing it because they're going to want something back, like a tax break or just the government to look the other way while they're doing whatever they're doing. They don't want to be regulated. They're not, this is not some favor for a friend. We have always kept that out of our government interactions. We don't take money that way to run our government programs because we don't want to owe anybody anything. That's just smart. So there's that. But during a shutdown, when you have a president who's like, I hate the Democrats, who's posting racist AI videos constantly on his social media platform, which he is, and posting, videos of himself dumping feces on Democrats, which he is, then what you get is a president who is showing very clearly the Republican senators and congresspeople, he has no respect for Democrats at all, and neither should they. And he is going to find the money to pay for things that he wants to pay for. For example, military. So Timothy Mellon giving him $130 million, they accepted that quote unquote donation. We've never had this, friends. We've never had private donations coming in to pay the military. And his supporters are like, oh, good, that's great, that's good, because the military should get paid. Of course the military should get paid with federal money, not with private donations. We do not want to have this precedent where we are paying the military with private donations, because what do you think that opens the door for? Foreign, interference, Anyone could start paying the military, and we do not want that. That's a huge, huge problem. The second part of that is if we're in a shutdown and what's supposed to happen, okay? And again, quorums, breaking quorum and shutdowns and these clean CRs, these things are all designed so that our representatives are forced to work together to reopen. They are forced to, even the majority party, they have to take into consideration what the minority constituents want. They can't just totally disregard half the country. They're not allowed to do that. And nobody would want that. That's called taxation without representation. That's not democracy. We don't want that here. We've never wanted that here. And if it was your people not in the minority, right? If you were in the reverse situation, you would not want that either. You would not just want a situation where, let's say, Democrats were running all three branches of government and you were Republican. You would not want it to be that the Democrats could just spend your tax dollars on the projects they liked and give you the big FU on the projects that were important to you. You would not be okay with that. And you are lying to yourself if you want to pretend otherwise. That's a big fat lie. And we both know it. That's reality. So that's what's going on here. When you have the president accepting private donations to pay for the things he wants to pay for and to defund, to impound funds Congress has appropriated, that's unconstitutional. What you have is an undermining of the Congress itself. You have a president who is basically saying, you don't need to negotiate. We don't have to worry about what the Democrats want. I don't care what they want. I hate them. We don't have to worry about that at all. Don't talk to them. Don't compromise. Get rid of the filibuster. Push this thing through. This is the budget I want. I don't want to extend Obamacare subsidies. He hates Obama. So jealous. So petty. The picture of Biden is an auto pen. Come on now. This is a petty child. That's what's going on. So that's a problem. That's not democracy anymore. And there's no more Congress. That's a branch of the government that he's basically cut off at the knees. And nobody's really talking about it. Nobody's understanding that that's what he's been doing now for this entire shutdown. He's just been canceling programs he doesn't like, doesn't want to support, and finding private money for the things that he does want to support. That is not democracy. And if you don't call that out because you don't care, because he's the guy you voted for, I want to let you know you don't love this country, and you don't love democracy, and you don't love the Constitution. And I don't think you're going to love it when the pendulum swings the other way. This is gonna blow. I just want you to know. I don't know how. I just know that this is not going to continue. People are not going to allow this rampant illegality in all these different areas to continue and just kind of watch it. Like, we're getting to the point now where it's going too far, and they've kind of overshot their hand at this point. When you get to a place where you are choosing to not release $6 billion that has been appropriated for the USDA, and you're lying, and kids are going to go hungry, and not just kids, elderly people, people who are unable to get to the local food bank, people who can't drive, like it is like the lowest. It's the lowest. It's terrible. There's nothing great about it. It's really ugly. When you want to deny people affordable health care, like, people are going to die, it's really ugly. Groceries are not, they've gone up. They've not gone down. Like, nothing is getting better. A lot of things are getting worse. And I think the thing that is the most concerning to me is the utter lack of empathy and compassion and decency and honesty. It's really, it's very disheartening. And I really encourage people. I have a friend, and I was talking about it. I've lost a friend in this whole thing who I never would have thought, would be like supporting this. But I think a lot of people had their sort of like one issue that became the gateway issue, and they like took the off ramp, for this one issue, and then just like, bam. And that's part of what I was thinking about as I was driving for so long on so little sleep, after such an emotional, few days. I was just thinking about, from like, 30,000 feet up or whatever, it's like you have this man, this president, and like, he's just like a guy in a suit, he's a little ant. Well, he's not an ant. I was saying he's like a flea. He's like a flea, because fleas are parasites. They're parasites, and they suck blood, right? And they cause misery. They just make people itchy, or animals more than people. But they're parasites. They eat off of the environment. They offer nothing. And it's like, from way up there, it's like he's nothing. He's really not. He's not anything. And that's part of what was occurring to me. Is just like, as I was driving by all of these beautiful mountains and all of this, lavender fields and farmland, and it was just like the arrogance of people who can look around at this country and this planet, who could look up at like a starry night and think that they have anything meaningful to say about how anyone else should live is astounding. It's astounding. It's like you're going to be here for a blink of time, a blink of time. And you didn't create any of this. This is not your planet. This is not your creation. This is not your world. You didn't make this mountain. You didn't make that sky or those stars. You didn't create that lavender field. Who are you? Be quiet. Close your mouth. Open your eyes and be amazed. Be humbled. And stop thinking you have any clue as to how other people should live, or what they should do, or who they should love, or how they should pray. Especially if your idea of prayer is that it's okay for some people to be brutalized. You are so lost. You really are embarrassing yourself, and you are insulting the gift that you have been given just by existing on this planet. You have lost it. You have lost it. That's what I was thinking as I was driving. The people who are following this flea of a man, you know, in his suit with his long tie and his crazy hair and his stupid makeup, with his horrible racist things that he says. The people who are like, oh, he's amazing. It's just like fleas. It's like, it's nothing. You're nothing. It's nothing. It's unimportant. It's ugly. It's ugly. It's not pretty. This is nothing to follow. Jumping around after someone who's so awful, and isn't going to be here long. You know, it's going to go. It's going to be gone. In this grand scheme of things, this is going to be over. And, you know, and then there are ants. That's what I was thinking. Then there are ants. You know, and ants are, I don't know if you know this, but like the earth as we know it would not exist without ants. They are keeping the delicate, you know, balance in the ecosystem, the ecological balance. Like ants are extremely important. They aerate the soil. There's so many things they do, the whole, you know, the food chain, all of it. Like it wouldn't be overnight, but like ants are incredibly important, and they are, they work really hard, and they work together, and they have a queen. They have a queen, not a king. And the queen works. She works. She goes, she mates, you know, once she'll come, she'll like lay eggs, and make sure her colony is populated. And then she rests because, you know, it's a lot of work. And they work together, and they bring food back, you know, and they talk to each other. If you squish an ant in your house because you think, I don't want ants in here, pheromones are released. Alarm pheromones are released. You're going to get more ants. A death pheromone goes out to the ant community. Like, you know, I'm dying. Like, and they will come. You do not want to be doing that. And I was thinking about that as I was driving. Like, there's some ant on a leaf somewhere right now, like munching away on her little leaf, thinking like, oh, the breeze is so nice. You know, I'm going to get down soon so I can help like my ant friends bring like that giant piece of Swiss cheese that toddler just dropped back to the queen, you know. And then there are fleas like going and torturing some poor dog. You know, you get to decide who you want to be, but you don't have a lot of time. You do not have a lot of time. You can follow some nasty flea around and suck the blood out of people and laugh and think it's like funny or something, like you're doing something, but you're not. You're just causing misery. And, you know, I was thinking about my my friend, the one that I've lost to this mess, and he's very back to that quote about like we see things as we are. You know, we don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. And then I was thinking about how you could twist almost anything. I was thinking about that person who saw that horrible video and said, you know, did she have her documents, right? And then I go and I look at the bio, and there's the, you know, quote from Jesus, right? It's just like, anyone can take their belief system and twist it any way they want. My friend is like all about karma and reincarnation. And he's like, so anyone who's suffering, his view is like, well, they have karmic debt. You know, there's reincarnation. And so they did something in a past life and they've chosen whatever experiences they need in this lifetime for their soul to evolve. So if they're suffering, it's because that's what they needed for their soul to evolve. And, you know, you come back as many times as you need to in order for your soul to evolve. And then eventually you won't need to come back anymore because you will have been here enough times that your soul is then enlightened and, you know, you don't need to be in a human body anymore. And that, listen, that is a very comforting of all of the different possibilities, right? That to me personally is the most comforting. It's more comforting and it makes more sense than some man in the sky who's smiting people for touching themselves. Okay. It, you know, makes more sense to me than that, let's say. I love the idea of reincarnation because I love the idea that I could travel with my children again, that I could travel with my friends again, that I could see y'all again. I love that. It's great. I love the idea that we get more than one go around to get things right. I love the idea that there, you know, liberation and enlightenment are possible. I love the idea that all is right with the world, right? On some level that like, that everything is happening for a reason. That would be so great. That would be great. I'd love that. Okay. It's like, it doesn't make any sense right now, but ultimately, but here's the thing. I am the kind of person, I have the kind of personality. If I don't know something for sure, then I can't use it as a source of comfort. It's a nice idea. It's a nice theory. I like the theory. I can hope that it's true. You know, but I think there are certain things that are unknowable, like agnostic, right? I think there are certain things that you just can't know. I am not someone like, I think there's something going on here. Absolutely. But I don't think we get to know what it is. I think there are some things you just don't get to know until you're there. This is me. This is what I think I'm sharing with you. We don't have to agree. This is the lifelong question people grapple with. So, you know, it's completely fine if we don't agree. But this is me. If I don't know something for sure, and I don't think I will know until I exhale for the final time, then I'll know. Was my theory right? You know, then I'll know. Until then, I can't say to someone, this is what's happening. Don't worry. You know, I know what's happening. So here's my view and this is what I think. So this will comfort you, because we don't all agree. And I don't know for sure. I am not, whatever word you want to use, okay? For me, the words I would use, confident at best, okay? There are other words I would use for people who think they know with certainty what happens after this. Confident is the best word I have. I could not offer any theory as some kind of really solid source of comfort for someone else, because first of all, they may have a totally different set of beliefs. I'm not going to push my beliefs on somebody else. And I'm not even saying I believe that. I'm saying I like that theory. I don't know. It's a great thing. I like the theory resonates with me, but I'm not saying I believe that. I'd like to believe that is what I'm saying. So for example, you know, I would never say to someone who is grieving, everything happens for a reason, because everything might be totally freaking random. Okay. I don't know. And maybe that's a comforting thought for some people because they believe in karmic inheritance and reincarnation and enlightenment of the soul, but it's not going to be comforting to everyone. So I don't say things like that. Because for some people, that's the least comforting thing you could say. That's a horrifying thing for a person who just lost someone. That is not going to be comforting. For people who lose children, it will never make sense to them, not ever, ever. So it's not comforting to say that. So this friend of mine has gone to this place where no matter what he sees, no matter what suffering he sees, he's like, well, it's their karmic inheritance. So, and he's sort of lost the compassion part, because what's supposed to go along with that is this, for people who are, for example, who believe Buddhists, or people who believe in, karmic inheritance and all of that. It's like there's supposed to be this giant side helping of compassion and empathy, because even if it is like the soul's evolution, where it's still the pain the person is in, your heart is supposed to go out to them, because they're having this very human experience right now and they're in agony and it's painful. But he's kind of tilted toward this extreme non-attachment attitude toward it, and this misuse, in my opinion, of focal points, drishtis. Well, just focus on your own life. Don't pay attention so much to all these other things that are happening, because it'll bring your vibration down. The most selfish use of what I consider, for me in my life, is like a sacred practice. I would never use my practice that way. I would never say to myself, I'm not going to focus on other people's suffering. I'm just going to try to focus, no, thank you. I shall opt out of that. But you can do anything you want with your belief system. You can pour it over any scenario if you want to. For me, my religion is trying to call out things that feel obvious. That is not okay. Treating someone that way is never okay. There's never a justification for that, ever. Treating someone's mother like that, who is no danger to you, is never okay. Doing that in front of someone's child is never okay. Full stop. No conversation. There is no justification. And if you can't see that, something's gone wrong for you. There's something wrong with your vision, really, that you want to try to get a hold of right now, because you don't have a lot of time. No matter how much time you have, you do not have a lot of time. That's my religion, is being able to say, the things that are just ought to be really obvious clearly, and to hold on to that. I am very grateful that I don't feel any need that I don't have any belief system that makes me try to force things that are not okay into a box marked okay, excusable, okay because of this. I don't have any of those boxes. I reject those. It's like, if your spiritual practice is making it okay for some people to be brutalized, that's not a spiritual practice I'm interested in at all. And I don't think it's a spiritual practice. I think it's garbage. That's what I think. So, yeah. That basically, those are all the things. One of the things that I was saying is that when I was driving, along with thinking about fleas and ants and the country and the state and how beautiful it is, and people who could look around, and think that they have something to say about how other people should be living. Like, what a waste of your time here, honestly. I also ended up, as I was driving, I was I had this playlist going and I was singing along, because at a certain point I got really tired. I was just trying to keep my eyes open and stay alert. And I suddenly got a vision of that, the video of the ice agents and this, Jackie and her daughter and the whole thing. And I started sobbing, just like big sobbing, just like suddenly, just where you're just like, you can't breathe, like that kind of sobbing. Like as I was driving, it just was suddenly like completely overcome and racking sobs, just tears, just like, and I realized I had been holding on to it for days, like just the trauma for that poor kid and her mother and like all of us, really. And it shouldn't be like this. It shouldn't be like this, and it doesn't have to be like this. And I hope that I hope more and more people are gonna like start to just be able to like, you know, call out the obvious things. At the very end of the essay, I um I wrote my own quote unquote Bible verse, but it's not attached to any religion. And instead of, having it be like Romans, 3, verse 1 through whatever, I made it like obvious, like chapter 1, verse 2 through 3. So I just think we need to be able to, just, it, one of the things that happened with my friend is that after I met up with him because it's a 20-year friendship. So I was like, let me try to understand. Let me go with the intention of trying to understand, what happened here and have a conversation and listen in that way where I'm not waiting for my turn to speak. I'm not cutting him off. I'm not jumping in to tell him why he's wrong. I'm really listening. I'm really trying to give him an opportunity to tell me where he's coming from. And I did. It was calm. I listened when it was, when he had sort of like finished whatever point he was making. I then would say, here are all the things for me that, like, why that just does not hold water. Like, here's this problem I have. How can you reconcile what you said with this thing that happened here, this thing that was done here, this thing that was said, and there wasn't an ability to really like respond to sort of point by point. Those things would just kind of like roll off and he would sidle away to the next topic. Anyway, I realized after we had talked for like an hour, he is fully deep into this thing and I'm not going to pull him out. Like, he's not open to that. No matter what I say, he's holding on to, he's not going to let go of this. And so, I left and he texted a little while later and he said, he said to me while we were there, I can't even do this with most people. Like, it's like, I appreciate that you're sitting here and you're calm and whatever. And, I said, look, it's a 20-year friendship. Like, I'm trying to understand, but, this is really sad for me. Like, I'm really sad because I feel like you look like the person that I knew and loved, and you sound like the person that I knew and loved, but you are saying things the person that I knew and loved would never say. I feel like it's like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and I'm just like, I'm devastated. I feel like you're gone. I don't know who this person is. It's like, it's really painful. And, he was like, I'm still here. I was like, oh, I don't think so. I don't think so. Unless I miss something for 20 years, I don't think so. And anyway, he texted me later and he was like, I'd really appreciate like that we met, and, I just feel like we can agree to disagree and still be friends, and I still love you. And I didn't respond. And a lot of time went by. And then I saw that video. And I thought about sending it to him. And I started to send it to him, actually. along with a message that basically said, I know I haven't responded to your message. I haven't really known what to say. But this is why I can't agree to disagree. Like, if we can't agree that this is not okay and no one deserves to be treated this way, then there's no foundation for us to stand on together. There's no foundation for this friendship to continue, because that's just like basic decency, empathy, dignity. But the thing is, I realized, like, he's seen the video. He's seen a whole bunch of videos like that. And I'm not going to change his mind. He's gone. It's like he's gone. And he's only coming back if he decides to come back. So I didn't send it. Because the not sending a message is a message, the loss of my friendship is a message. And it doesn't mean I'm not sad about it, but that's the bigger message that I can send. And there's no joy in it for me. There's a lot of heartache, but I can't stand on an abyss, and no one can. And that's kind of what I'm talking about. So thankfully, as exhausting as this week was, the two really good things are that my son is okay and his girlfriend is okay. She went flying off of her e-bike, but she is okay. And, the people I love are okay. I linked a lot of resources to local food banks across the country who are trying to bridge the gap. There are a lot of states that are trying to release state funds to, try to help people who are losing their benefits for the month of November. DoorDash and GoPuff are trying to help. There are a lot of, organizations that are trying to help as well. There's an app called Too Good to Go that is trying to generally help with food waste. So at the end of the day, any like grocery stores or local restaurants, if they can see like, oh, we're not going to sell this food, they will make it available for a reduced price. Or if it's a grocery store and they see like the expiration date is like the sell by date, they've reached it, they will sell it. And they do that because the food is still good. It's just they have to sell it by that day or they can't keep it on the shelves. So those are some resources I linked in the essay. If you have neighbors on your block who are elderly and live alone, or like they can't drive anymore and you're not sure what their financial situation is, or and you feel comfortable to ask, like, are you okay? Do you have family in the area? Do you need any help? Do you need can I help you get pick up groceries? Is there any way if you're in a position to help and you feel comfortable doing that, now's a great time. If you're in a position to donate to food banks, money is always the best because they know what they need and they also get good prices. They can get a lot for less than like we can. But if that's not, if that's not doable, if you have food in your pantry that you're not going to use, the pop-off cans are great. A lot of the time, canned food, unless you have an extra can opener that you want to drop off with your canned food, that can be really helpful. Also, like sandwich bread. A lot of the time, they'll get like, peanut butter and jelly, but not enough bread. You can call your local food bank and ask, like, what do you need if you're going to drop off food? But if you can do a monetary donation, that's often helpful. You can also ask if they need help delivering food. Just, you can just call and ask what they need. Also, tampons and pads. A lot of the time, people, that's very helpful. So those are just some things if you're in a position to help. And if you need help, there's some resources there that are linked. And I also highlighted Josh White in Portland at Heretic Coffee. He's got this coffee house, and he decided he was going to give away free breakfast to people who lost their SNAP benefits. And he decided to just put up a donation link for anybody who wanted to help with that endeavor. And I don't even know where he's at now. The last I checked, which was when I wrote the essay, it was at $200,000. He was expecting a few $100s. People from all over the world are donating. I just got goosebumps. It's, people are really good. You can be an ant or you can be a flea. So, I would definitely say choose Team Ant. That's what I would say. All right. I love y'all. If you need any support, you know where I am. I hope you're hanging in there, and I'll see you soon. Okay. Bye for now.